The Mind of Grief Chapter 1 In a quiet village hidden among forests and hills, there lived a wise old man named He was known for his prescient advice and called for healing souls from grief. People from all over the country turned to him for displeasure, and no one left disappointed. Lived in a modest house on the edge of the village, surrounded by a garden where flowers and herbs grew. Harmony always reigned in his garden, and the smells of flowers and herbs healed the hearts of those who came. One day a young girl named Mira came to his house. Her heart was lost with grief and she was looking for comfort. The Mind received her with kindness and said, "Sit down, my daughter, and tell me about your worries." Mira sat down on the closed constitution of the chair blanket and began her story. She told Yuma about how she lost her family due to illness, and how loneliness and grief became her unhappy companions. I listened attentively, and when Mira finished her story, he chose. "You want to get rid of grief and find happiness again, right?" Mira added. "Then I will give you a piece of advice that will help you destroy and bring joy back into your life," said the Mind. Chapter 2. The Mind guided the world through the ownership of the garden, and every flower and plant they met on their way. He explained to her their healing properties and how they help in dealing with grief. "Look, Mira, it's a rose. It symbolizes love and beauty, and its fragrance fills the heart with warmth. If you take care of the roses, they will remind you of the love you have for your family," said the Mind. They passed by flowers and plants, and continued their lands with Mira. At the end of the garden there was a tree with a wide crown and lush foliage. With Mira, "This tree of life is a symbol and covers territories," said the Mind. After walking through the garden and listening to the advice of the Mind, the beauty of the world saw how her soul began to heal slowly. She realized that there are hidden forces in nature that can help her cope with grief and bring joy back into her life. Chapter 3 Mira began to follow the advice of the Mind. Every day she tended the flowers and trees in the garden, hugged the tree of life and inhaled the scents of flowers. With each of her souls, the day became brighter and more joyful, and grief receded into the background. One day, when she came back to the Garden of Mind, he said to her, "You've made great progress, Mira." Mira listened attentively to the sage. "The main thing is to know grief, it's not to learn something from which you can master in one fell swoop," said the Mind. "Don't avoid your grief, Mira. Allow it to exist in your heart, but don't let it control your thoughts and actions. Acknowledge it, but continue to live to the fullest." The Mind continued. Chapter 4 The Mind gave the world a small amulet in the form of a tree of life, which he wore around his neck. Let this amulet be a reminder of our lessons and that the strength and wisdom to overcome grief is always inside you. Mira thanked Yuma for his wise advice and care. She returned with new hope and reserves, ready to face grief and find happiness again. Time passed, and Mira began to work as a healer of souls in her village. She passed on the knowledge gained from the Mind to other people, helping them to belong to their grief and bring joy back into their lives. So the Mind and the world continued to heal the souls of grief, spreading light and happiness among all who turned to them for help. And with each new healing of the heart, the world around became brighter and more beautiful.